Hi everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Review channel. A couple of weeks ago, I went to the Wind Up watch fair. It was great to see a lot of the brands that I'd worked with previously, but there's a few brands that I had never really closely looked at, I'll say. But thanks to my friend Watch Chris, he introduced me to the team over at Jack Mason, which is where I met Peter. So Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
A bit of a confession here. When I first heard of Jack Mason, I thought it was one of those brands that was perhaps linked to another brand. There was an umbrella company and Jack Mason was one of them. I think it was because your marketing's always been sophisticated looking, seemed like it was part of a much bigger company. So I was very interested when I was chatting to you. It really is an independent watch brand in its own right.
You're not the first person who's mentioned that before. I can start from a real brief background of myself. I went to school for industrial design, and then after that, my first job was at a Miyota group. I didn't know anything about watches. It was a job right out of college, and so I took it. And it was then when my mind was like, oh, okay, the watches, this is incredible. I had the opportunity to go to Switzerland and study design under the Swiss designers over there. And that's when I really fell in love with the art of watch design. And then I worked for several other large watch groups and started Jack Mason in 2015. Product and brand is a big deal to me. And so how we portray ourselves as a brand through digital media or even just in person, whether it's at a show or anything like that, it's a high priority to me. And that's probably why I always thought that we were part of a larger group. But no, we are very independent.
Are you assembling them in the US? You assemble them in Texas?
We don't actually assemble them in Texas yet. We're still in the middle of trying to build that infrastructure out. Contrary to popular belief, it is really hard to find skilled watchmakers in the US. And so we do work with some partners based out of Ohio who do the assembly and regulation. And then it finally comes down to our offices here in Dallas, which is where we ship the product to our customers. We invest in our own tooling, everything from the hands, the indices, everything is completely custom designed. If you've been in the industry long enough, especially for someone like yourself, if you've seen enough watches, you can usually tell when something is original or you've seen it before.
You very kindly sent me one in for reviews. What I thought would be interesting is if we both talk through this watch, not only can I give my opinion on it, but you can also give a background to some of the things that I noticed about this watch. First off, I've got to start with the packaging. I don't often really talk about the packaging unless there's something really exceptional with it or something quite bad with it. But yours, when it arrived, I had this childlike excitement that it's almost a hollowed out book and then you've used the felt to simulate pages of a book. It just reminded me of a kid watching those spy movies where there's a recorder or some secrets in there. So how did you come up with the book design? It really is cool.
I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah, it was meant to be sort of a book for a couple of reasons. Most importantly, when it comes to the brand, going back to what we were saying from a brand and product experience, the whole thing is an experience. It doesn't start and end with the watch itself. It starts from the moment you go on our website to ordering the product to receiving the product. That was really near and dear to my heart. The packaging being a book was something that was just this motion of opening something it's like a mental thing. When you open, it just presents itself to you. And I think also thinking about, what people do with the box afterwards. When you get a big chunky watch box, it's kind of awkward where you put it. But though if you made it a book, you can actually literally put it on a bookshelf, store it, and it's kind of hidden away. There is this men's fragrance that I remember seeing the packaging of. The cologne was inside the cutout pages of a book, and I thought that was kind of unique and interesting. So it's kind of a play on that as well.
Well, how did you come up with the name Jack Mason?
I have another partner involved with the business, and he is more of on the investment side of things. He's a watch guy, obviously. Well, his son's name is Jack Mason, and Jack Mason is, I believe he's about 10 years old right now. But we went with the name because we really we have aspirations to become kind of the premier American watch brand. The name Jack Mason just happens to be extremely American and most importantly, very easy to remember. We just kind of stuck with it and it's been with us the entire time.
So Jack Mason is a real person similar to Christopher Ward and a few of these others.
Exactly.
You sent me the Hydrotimer. How long has this model been out?
Yeah, that just started shipping 2-3 months ago. The origins of that watch, it's based off of our Strat-o-timer GMT case. We had a lot of requests from our customers to create a dive watch. So this was sort of our newest dive watch in the sort of new chapter of Jack Mason, where we are making more premium products, really geared towards the enthusiast and collectors. It is based off the Strat-o-timer case, but we bumped up the water resistance to 300 meters by design, a more traditional dive, a dive style where you have the 15-minute, 120-click bezel. You have your circular lume plots in there with a triangle. But a lot of design and thought went into this watch. The highest priority, wanted to create a watch that was an instant classic, like one that just kind of just stood the test of time. And the colorway that you have right there isn't necessarily the most classic version, so it's a fun twist on it. That was kind of the design intent, something that you didn't get tired looking at.
People that regularly watch the channel, you'll know that I have a real love for watches that have the date on, but I did ask you to surprise me with one, and it certainly was a surprise, and I'm glad you did, because it allowed me to really concentrate on the design and appreciate all of the elements coming together on a watch that I probably would have overlooked myself. It's got a classic design to it, and I think you've done quite well not to make it a direct homage of something else. There's familiarities. The hour hand obviously has a familiar look to it. The K shape as well has got that classic, maybe early Zodiac, the original vintage Zodiacs. The overall execution of it, I was impressed with the quality, with the finish, the fit and finish of it. You sent me both of the strap options, bracelet and also the Tropic strap, both of which I think are very good options for this, and I'll explain why. The Tropic strap, I didn't think there was going to be much ability to innovate in the world of Tropic straps. Putting this little notch in the keeper, the Texas Star, I presume that is, to hold the keeper.
It is a standard Tropic strap. It's one of those things where the design doesn't need to be reinvented, but it's just going that extra mile and thinking about, well, how can we create the better experience, a wearing experience? Functionally, how does it wear better? And everybody knows the flappy strap syndrome that you get. And so we figured, it is an FKM strap, and we reinvested into the tooling for a rubber mold. It's worth being able to design a locking mechanism into the keeper. And it's just the little things that means so much more to the wearing experience.
The overall case size is 46mm from lug to lug, which spans my 7.2 inch wrist perfectly. It looks like it might be bigger on the site, but it's right there at 40.5. I measured it at more of a wearable size, 20mm lug width. Surprisingly, only 13mm thickness, which does include that slightly domed sapphire.
That's exactly right. Without the crystal, from the top of the bezel, the flat bezel to the case back is 11.2. It is very wearable, and the case back angles down. It just sits right into the flat part of your wrist. It does wear quite slim for 7.25, which I think my wrist is also 7.25, down to 6.5 inch wrists. It fits quite comfortably, especially with the bracelet tapering from 20 to 16. That also helps quite a bit for those who have smaller wrists.
The overall balance of the case as well is perfectly balanced towards the back, which is something I've really fixated on this year after getting burnt by a Grand Seiko where it felt like it was very top heavy from the crystal down. But something I didn't know, you told me that you've coated the case.
Yeah, the case and bracelet has the scratch resistant hardness coating on it, which goes up to 1200 Vickers on the hardness scale. It's not scratch proof. You can absolutely scratch it, but having the hardness coating on there certainly helps quite a bit. When you're typing away on your keyboard and it's rubbing against the desk, it'll certainly protect it against that for some time. Just like any coating goes, over time, it eventually wears off. It's one of those features it's nice to have because it extends that sort of new look for a longer period of time.
How is it done? Is it like a DLC coating?
It is like a DLC plating. There are different plating processes where you can chemically fuse the coating to the metal versus like just putting almost as if you're painting it on. This is fused to the metal, which makes it that much more stronger. This is a feature that we're not original. Not enough brands do it.
Whilst we're talking about the bracelet, you've definitely ticked all the boxes here, haven't you? You've got the quick release, screw links, and then you've got quite an interesting ratcheted system on here. A bit like Rolex, but not exactly. Is this unique to you, or how did you come up with this?
Having the ability to, the micro adjust, for those who have the function know how amazing it is. But the biggest priority was when you wear it, it's still slim. It's almost like the whole mechanism is hidden within the buckle. I mean, it is hidden in the buckle, but you would never know it's there. And And so that was kind of the biggest thing with that, was to make sure it is machined to where when you put it all together, still have the wearing experience of a buckle that doesn't have it at all. We put a lot of adjustment in the buckle. I think there are 8 or 9 points of adjustment in there. Pretty much any wrist size can wear this watch.
Hopefully I'll do a good job of capturing this on the camera, but it is very thin. It's thinner than Christopher Ward, thinner than the Rolex Submariner that has a similar sort of ratcheting mechanism. It's thinner than that, thinner than the Datejust that has one position. But yeah, it is extremely thin. Milled clasp as well with a push button deployant on there. So talking a bit now about the bezel. The bezel is very satisfying click, firm and precise. Have the bezels always been like that, or has it been an evolution of design?
That is a new bezel for us. The Hydrotimer has 120 click unidirectional. The bezel experience, I know how important it is for the click action, the turning action it is for enthusiasts or a collector. Put a lot of emphasis in the engineering behind that, making sure that it was firm. It wasn't too loose, very minimal to no backplay on the bezel. So the way we actually did it is we used 3 ball bearings. 3 ball bearings in like a triangular pattern to where it's like you make sure that there's like it's really just on there very nicely. So it's a lot of stuff underneath that's happening. Yeah.
Quite a feat of engineering to get it so thin. Is it a sapphire insert as well on the bezel?
Yeah, it's sapphire insert on the bezel to get that whole bezel to glow. Got the X1 Superluminova on there. The whole thing glows blue, which is just kind of a fun thing.
What are we looking at here on the lume on the hands?
Same thing, BGW9. We're using the top grade Superluminova on there.
The movement inside here, you're using the Miyota 9039. Not only are you using 9039s, but you're regulating them as well, or having them regulated?
Yes, we are. We are regulating to ±5 seconds a day, which is pretty accurate. And if they do happen to fall out of spec, we will regulate them again for you. Not an issue. A lot of things do come into play. Things like magnetism and things like that, as we all know. I mean, we used the 9039 no date. Going back to the design, I really wanted a very perfectly symmetrical design language with the whole watch. And so the no date helps with that. Plus, I know there are a lot of people out there who kind of prefer the no date when it comes to their dive watches and things like that. So we figured, why not give it a try? Our Strat-o-timer does have a date on it, but the dive watch, we're like, let's just make this an easy kind of set the time and go type of experience.
I really appreciate you joining us. If anybody's got any comments about this watch, let us know in the comments section down below. We'll see you all next time on Casual Watch Reviews. Thanks, everyone.